When you were 14, your dad had a serious conversation with you.
On the way there?
He thought you were full of shit, and you had a very come to Jesus would be the wrong word because we're Jewish, but...
Yeah, and you know what's funny? I speak of it as my dad really put me on the straight and narrow because I had salesmanship, gift of gab, like whatever it was to make a sale when I was 12. It was less that he thought I was full of shit, it was that he didn't like that I embellished the amount of cases we sold one day. So pretty early on, about a year in, the first year was terrible. Basement the whole time, bagging ice, maybe making an occasional appearance upstairs just to pack something out. But the second year, I got to be upstairs, and that really was good because then I was in the action. I was in the traffic. Customers would walk in, I was in the game. What I liked. It's why I liked flea markets, it's why I liked baseball card stores. So pretty quickly, I would say within 2 or 3 weekends, my dad was, this is when I wish I haven't really talked to my mom and dad about this. I'm gonna speak to them about this. My mom definitely gassed me up to my dad when I was coming in. She's like, he's got it. He didn't know, and he's skeptical. He's like, we'll see. Very quickly, once I was upstairs at 15, I think my dad realized he's got it. And so he started to really, that's when it got fun. He's like, hey, we got a lot of cases of this wine, sell it. I'm fucking 15, I look 11, and I'm slinging wine effectively. And so it was really neat. And I just remember this one weekend, I don't remember if it was Iron Horse Chardonnay or Kenwood Chardonnay, some of the most prominent Parducci Petit Sirahs. One of the things I remember early on in my career that he wanted to sell. And he's like, how'd we do? On the way home. And I was like, crushed. I sold like 25 cases or whatever. And the real number was like 17. And the next day my dad came home because he didn't have the data in front of him. And he really made it to do with like, if you fucking sell 17 cases, you say 17, not 25. And that was kind of like the way he was addressing like word is bond, like straight, like my dad's, to this day, if you embellish to my dad, you've done a catastrophic lie. He's very rigid when it comes to lying, embellishing. And so I think that was very healthy for me because I had such natural gab at that point. And if I had a different, like, I see it in people. I see people who have natural salesmanship, grow up in a family full of hucksters, and they end up selling you know this, what I'm about to say. Selling bullshit and selling real shit is the same shit. Some kids just go down the wrong path, and I don't think I was gonna go down the wrong path. I wasn't gonna be that, but I'm very grateful that he tweaked and tightened me because I think it's made me more respectful.
You went to school and you were a D and F student. You weren't really studying that hard. You made a point to be a wine expert at 16, reading Wine Spectator and science class. Every parent also thought you were gonna be a loser.
Yeah. And
how did that feel, and did that motivate you?
Yeah, that motivated me. Back to chips on shoulders. Again, and it's fun to dissect it in this kind of environment. I think there's healthy chips on shoulders and not healthy. I always say there's 2 ways to build the biggest building in town. Just build the biggest building or spend your time tearing everyone's buildings down. I'm definitely, it's funny, even as I'm trying to go in this direction in the conversation, I don't think it's fully true. Meaning, I don't remember saying to myself that Steve Nash's mom, lovely lady, like I could see she was disappointed when she would ask me about how I was doing in school, but it didn't leave me saying like, I'm gonna fucking show, you know what I mean? Like nobody was atrocious to me. Teachers, I remember Mrs. Stats, my sophomore and senior year math teacher, really be disappointed in her reaction and maybe a little razzy when I was a senior. But yeah, you know this. Were you a good student?
That was my ticket out. So I graduated top 1% of my class at Michigan.
So you know this. We all knew that we didn't even know that entrepreneurship was a ticket out when you and I were growing up. It wasn't in the ether. Not for me, at least. It was for you.
Here at Michigan. We'll talk about Jeff Blau and the related companies in a minute.
Love that. So maybe that, again, because you went to a strong university and you got exposed to more stuff. I can tell you for me, we were all propagandaed and brainwashed in junior high and high school that your college, where you go to college, is the unilateral, black and white, undisputed proxy and indicator to being successful. If you went to Harvard, you were gonna be successful, and if you went to community college, you were a fucking loser. And that's how the world was that I was living in. And so it was a huge currency, and I was adamantly debating it in my own head. I was completely convinced that I was going to be fiscally successful and emotionally successful. And I do believe that that's because of what my mom was saying internally at home and what was happening to me in the market. The merit of the market was speaking to me. I was making more money at card shows than grown men that were doing it full time for their profession. And that gave me huge confidence.
So you end up going to Mount Ida College, which I'm sure everybody who's watching this podcast knows his favorite college. And your freshman year, you were playing Madden. And then what happened?
Then Pete from Maine said, you gotta come and see this. And I go into a dorm room and there's a computer and I hear for the first time, cooch. I'm like, this is that internet thing, informational superhighway, World Wide Web. You guys are gonna be blown away by this. Literally, it was so crazy. We would sit there and watch people surf the web. Like, watch them. Like I stood there for 2 fucking hours before I got to get on the keyboard, watching Pete from Maine and others get on the computer and do different things. And even then, what was super interesting was everyone was scared to leave AOL. You just stayed in AOL. Like there was this browser, I remember, it would just be like the World Wide Web. We're like, we're not gonna click that. That's too crazy. You may get caught up. And yeah, I finally got on it late because it was like, college life, right? If I recall, like I didn't even get into that dorm room until like 10 p.m. I got finally on the computer at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I typed in, I typed the 2 things that I knew, baseball cards and wine. And I mean, out of a fucking movie. It was right then, like literally if I was ever lucky enough to have a movie made of me, the scene would be accurate. It was that dramatic. I literally remember seeing the reflection of my own face in the monitor saying, this is it. I just knew. And what I knew quickly after that was that Amazon and eBay were the game. Pretty fast. Like pretty fast, because it might have been second semester freshman year, it might have been 95 already. Or maybe I'm blurring it and maybe it was a year later. Within the first year of my journey, I just knew that this was gonna be it, and I wanted to be as great at it as possible. And I just studied it and would go to CompUSA, remember that retailer, and buy a magazine and read about it. So what I was doing with wine, I'd started doing with the internet. And I remember just really being fascinated by it. And the only obsession I had was, I'm gonna take my dad's liquor store online. Because at that point I was already pot committed that I was gonna go to the family business, and I was very focused. And this only deeply immigrant kids, I think, will understand me right now. This is hard, I think, for an American kid to understand. Based on American culture, it's not good or bad, but I was obsessed. That would be the word I would use. I think there's a lot of American kids who are excited to help their family business as long as it helps them. I think immigrant kids will understand this. I was obsessed with building up the family business for my parents. And even today, even as I say that, I'm like, almost like, was I brainwashed? Am I that noble? Did my parents do such a good job and I had such a good understanding that I would still get mine later? I don't know, but I think it was very unusual. I remember people thinking it was unusual. I don't know if I was addicted to the nobleness of it, but at that point in my life, before I saw the internet, like junior year of high school, 2 years earlier, 3 years earlier, I was like, I'm gonna go and fucking crush for my parents because I can. And so all I was obsessed with is, this is how I'm gonna crush for because originally I thought I was gonna open 100 stores. I always thought I was gonna build the Toys R Us of wine. My framework was CompUSA and Staples and McDonald's and Toys R Us and Walmart. There was no Amazon and eBay to look to. But that was the night I decided I was going to build it through that, and I did that.